What's up, YouTube? Hey, thanks for coming back for another character creation video for Ashes of Creation, where we kind of go through and we flesh out and we theory craft characters from an RP perspective, mind you, not like a metagame min-max kind of feel. But like I said before, I am so into role-playing and concepting characters that's like my love, my passion. I don't know why I find so much joy in it. Maybe I could be a really failed author at some point and just come up with great characters and terrible stories. However, let's do it. Let's just jump into it. I do not want to waste your time. I know some of my videos got a little long, so let's just get into it. Alright, so I used the random number generator like I've done in the previous episodes, and what that number popped out was in fact a Soulbow. So this one will be different because it's a primary that we haven't done yet, which is exciting. It's a ranger, and then it's going to intersect with cleric. So that'll help expedite the process a little bit, simply because we've made a cleric, right? So and it was a secondary. So that was our cultist. So we know that you'll have a death augment and a life augment option to your class. How it affects the class in general is that it will either provide self-healing and slight maybe AoE like HOTS or healing over time abilities, or maybe like they can get rid of debuffs. However, it won't be enough to completely eradicate the need for an actual healer main archetype, right? So let's jump into it. So Soulbow, alrighty, the name sounds awesome. I don't, as we go through it, we'll figure out what we can theory craft the ideas, because a lot of these archetypes, besides a couple that have been featured in alphas, are pretty empty. Like I click on Soulbow and it's like, Soulbow! You get the idea. So we'll have to make a lot of that up. And we're actually streaming on Twitch live for the first time, and it's awesome because we have our first chat. We have our first, we got our first person in chat, and they actually suggested that we make a Tolnar. Seems to be their favorite, so we're going to do that. I wanted to do a Pyre, but they said Tolnar, so we're going to dive into that. So let's check it out. So Soulbow is going to be primary ranger, and we haven't done a ranger yet. So I came in here and I wanted to see what Ashes of Creation and Intrepid Studios, what their ideal was for their ranger. Because many rangers across different role-playing systems can have a little bit of a different focus, and I wanted to see what was going on. So, Tolnar for the win. Yeah, see, I told you. So, when we go through here, it's almost all bow-centered, right? All ranged attack-centered. Now, you come down here and it shows that they can have, it looks like multi-equip, dual wield, and then melee weapons are going to have a maximum range, and then if you already have a ranged weapon attached to that, when you get out of your maximum range for your melee weapon, you'll switch to your ranged weapon for your auto attacks, and your ranged abilities won't be able to be pushed or used unless you're in that range. This makes sense. You don't have to switch yourself, maybe. It looks like you might just have to click a button, which is similar. So pretty cool, pretty easy. And then what I saw is, so we have bows and crossbows. I think bows and crossbows, focusing on one or the other from like a character design standpoint, in my mind is a little different. So if I'm just using a bow, doesn't mean it, but maybe I come from somewhere that doesn't use as much mechanics, right? It's not using the mechanical functions that are found in a crossbow. So maybe I'm more in the woods, which lends itself to an elf, or somebody who's not necessarily in one of the high developed civilizations, which it looks like is the Kalar and the Empyrean elves seem to be the most. Well, Valoon too, because they have a really good situation going on in the desert, so maybe they would too. And dwarves, I always think technical know-how, engineers. So if I'm using a bow, that kind of puts me in the Rinkai, Vec, Pyre, Tolnar mindset, because I feel like their cultures and their races would lend more to a bow. Obviously they can get crossbows and trade and shit, but I'm just saying. You're going Sentinel? Hold on, what's that? Sidetrack, YouTube. This is why we're live. Let me find what a Sentinel is. Sentinel is probably a tank. It is not a tank. Is it a fighter? No, boy, what is it? Sentinel. Aha! Ranger and tank. Oh, I didn't go the right fucking way, did I? Oh, that'll be fun. That's a pretty cool combination. That'll be super different. So, that's what my thoughts are with bow and crossbow being available, right? Bow is a little more low-tech, and crossbow. So, like, you're going Sentinel. So, if we think Ranger tank, just a quick sidetrack and we'll get back to what we're doing. Ranger tank, I think it doesn't always mean it, but tank, I always think like heavy armor, plate mail, shield, blah, 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 right? And then you have a crossbow. So if you go plate mail and ranged, I automatically go crossbow because it makes me think of like a heavy armored, like town's guard or just heavy armored mercenary, and they would be using crossbows. That's kind of what I'm feeling. Yeah, I think if you went tank and ranger, you get to feel that range damage class feel, that DPS feel, and then with the tank, you would have a little more survivability solo-wise. But yeah, so you see, I know it seems silly that bows and crossbows would give you a different feel, but from a character design, I really do feel like you can really get into the difference and how it could affect backstory or potential story of a character or how they're designed from the bottom up. I will just take another quick segue. Potion launchers was in their Battle Royale free-for-all. They did like a Fortnite-esque thing for a while to test out models and test out battles and just give the community something. If they brought potion launchers into the actual MMORPG, I don't care who you had to be to use it, I would be all over that shit. I would be the guy in the back just launching bottles of concoctions of liquids into the middle of fights, and I would never stop. So if that comes into the game, hands down, one of, if not the first or second person I make is going to be launching shit into the middle of stuff, and it'll be fantastic. Okay, so we got a ranger, bows and crossbows. I think in the creation process, we'll pick either one. I think we do a bow character and a crossbow character. That way I can kind of emphasize what I find to be the difference between a bow, a more natural, non-mechanically affected weapon, opposed to a crossbow, which has like engineering put into it and mechanics, and how that affects the creation of a character. I know that seems nitpicky and that seems a little too, maybe a little too much for you guys, but that's how in depth I get when I make characters, is I'm just like really into the flavor and that, and I know it affects more on a tabletop standpoint where you really get to role play the personality of the character and what have you, but in an MMORPG, if I can get that much into that character, I'm going to play it to max level more, right? I haven't heard anything from Intrepid Studios about how the leveling will be. We know, like in New World, which I enjoyed for a little bit, like everybody, and then, yeah, passion-driven for sure, is how I do it, and I'm just so into it, man, because the more I like the character, right, the more I'll actually get to max level, and what I was saying is, New World, it took a little while to get to the max level. Obviously, if you're a grind fest dude or lady, and you're all about it, and you grind your ass off, you'll probably get there in a week or less. You know, for me, who's a little more casual, it being a longer situation, and this being a brand new world, and all the absolute crazy shit that they're going to put in the game, right? With all of that, it would take 45... Oh, okay, hold on. Listen here, YouTube. Steven said it would take 45 days-ish to get to max level. That's awesome. Some of you hate it. Some of my friends even hate it. They are power gamers. They want to be the first to max level. They want to be the first to in-game content. But the world is going to be so interactive and immersive that I am going to literally have ADHD. My character will have all the ADHD. I'll be like, we're going to grind to level 10. Wait, I can catch butterflies? Like, you know, it's going to... So the more I'm in love with my character and the story I've created around my character, the higher possibility that I'll actually get to max level. Because thanks to my RP disease, is what I like to call it, I'm going to have, there's 69 options of classes. I'm going to have 69 characters. Or 64 characters. I think it's 64, my bad. I will have 64 characters. One or two of them might be max levels. Everybody else will be between 25 and 30. Because 25 is where you get that secondary class. And then I can create the 64 flavors of RP Baskin Robbins. So then, Cleric is our secondary, right? So we got our Ranger primary. We'll pick between bow and crossbow to really help with the flavor. And then Cleric being our secondary. We know, real quick, I might have already mentioned it, but if you come down here, it kind of shows you what the augments will be. So if we choose a life augment, we're looking at a Ranger base that can then have some self-healing benefits, life-giving benefits to other players, so maybe they can get rid of debuffs and what have you, and then you can pick a death augment. While there's nothing here, we can assume from various MMOs, various tabletop RPG games, that a death augment would probably have like debuffs, and may even give cause wounds, major wounds, whatever. So added like magical damage, drain life, maybe it can heal you through draining life opposed to just healing you, stuff like that. So we'll pick one of those. So already just for a ranger cleric, think of the combinations of going bow, so which what I said would be a little bit more primitive, perhaps, or more nomadic, not as developed. So you just pick bow, and then you come to cleric, and you've got a life or a death element. Right there, we've got picking bow is a choice, and then we make 2 other choices, life or death cleric. And that already gives us those 2 options. Now, again, we could pick crossbow, and then go into life or death. And you don't have to pick one or the other. I'm not entirely sure how, if just being a ranged character, you're good to go, or like your skills are in bow, or your skills are in crossbow. And similar to New World or other ones, the more you use that specific brand of weapon, the more skillful you get, the more abilities you get. So from a design standpoint, like a role-playing design standpoint, it just opens up so many possibilities, right? And then we're going to go to Soulbow, which we know absolutely shit about, but we'll make assumptions from the name, from the secondary class and the primary class. So, and then races, right? We're gonna pick Tolnar this time, simply because in chat, I'm gonna Bochi. If there was an S, it would be beautiful cheese, handsome cheese. But they were talking about how much they like the Tolnar. So I think it's great to be, this is why I'm doing it. I want to be interactive. So we're going to jump in here and we're going to do a Tolnar just for them. Okay, so here, I know I'm not sophisticated, but let's pull up our notepad and we'll get started. So we're going to do a male Tolnar. And now the beautiful thing about Tolnar, or the Forgotten, is that they are just an amalgamation of various races. So they could literally have like a lion head and a lizard tail, and they could look like a walking manticore, which I just said out loud, and that's what we're fucking doing because that sounds dope. Like a mammalian head, kind of this feline, bestial. Maybe we can make them like a broader shoulder. Maybe they get fur. Maybe they have like a Leonin look in their face, and then they could have like a. I doubt it's this in depth on character creation, but they could have like that scorpion tail. Or I don't know if you can give them wings, but we're gonna say that our male Soulbow is our male Tolnar Soulbow, and we're gonna say like Manticore inspired. So it's gonna have that bestial Leonin front, and then we'll have that reptilian tail. I like it, Manticore inspired. That should be cool. So we'll put like Leonin and reptile just in case I don't remember. Okay, and then that is Ranger first, and then Cleric second. I can't type. Renager, that's what's up. Alright, so then we need a name. Yeah, the character creator, it could be possible. Who knows? The character creator is in depth. For those of you who haven't seen it, there's a ton of YouTube videos. I saw like a ton. I saw like 3 or 4 people playing with the YouTube, with the character creator, and it is incredibly in depth, more so than Black Desert Online if you've ever played that, and that's their goal. They want to be better than that, so it really opens up to an incredible amount of like aesthetic customization of your character. All right, so now we've got a ranger and a cleric. We're going to say he's Manticore inspired because he is a Tolnar and he's a Soulbow. So so we're Ranger first. So let's put our mind in a Tolnar. So they're from the Underrealm, which is a society developed underground, and they're survivors. We had talked about that in Twitch chat. They're survivors. That everybody else left through their gates and went on holiday while all the shit went down. And the Tolnar were stuck amidst all that wild stuff, whether it's apocalypse or monster hordes or natural disasters or whatever it is. They survived. They went underground, built a society, and then they have to come above ground, food, all that stuff to live. Anyway, it's a society of survivors. So I think making a Tolnar ranger first, totally, the flavor fits perfect. As a ranger, feels like a survivalist, something like that, and being part of the Tolnar, which survivors, makes a lot of sense. So I think it's easy to think about a ranger from this race. And then we have that kind of Leonin aesthetic going for a Manticore feel, and lions, hunters, predators. However, even though the female lions do all the hunting majority of the time. However, so we've got our lion, our hunter, and so 1 to 25 in the game would be as a ranger. So from a character creation standpoint, so you've got 25 levels or that amount of time, right? To how would our character in that time find their way into being a cleric? Cleric could be religious. It could be that they're part of an organized religion or an organized cult of some sort. However, it could just be that they had a run-in with a divine being. Maybe they ran in with a divine being in the forest or in a forest or, something. It doesn't always have to be a cleric or a divine class. Doesn't always have to be just that they are favored or given gifts from a supreme god or a supreme being. It could just be that they are favored by a divine being or a non-divine, whatever, an infernal being. Can't quite off the top of my head think of like the opposite of divine. So similar to a warlock in 5e, where they can have a deity that gives them power directly while not being part of a religion. So that could also be an option, right? So if that's the option, we have got to name. This is the best part. We've got to name our Soulbow. So we were talking about being a ranger for a long time. So I think that first name could be really hunter focused. We could go cheap and we could say Leo because we're a lion and we're going Manticore. Leo it seems so plain. However, it also just seems easy. And we know how long I can spend on naming a character. So we'll just go Leo. And then after Leo, this is where I always get stuck. Because I like to do it like medieval style. Meaning, I like their last name. While it might not fit the race or maybe just the archetype we're going for, I like the last name to be what they're doing. Like if they were a clothes maker, maybe we go Taylor is their last name. However, some of the ones we had was like Havu Cursefang. We had our first bard-centered character we named Blood Him. He was an orc bard tank. So he's in the front, and we said Blood Him. And we had a lot of reasons for it. Him being music for the bard, blood being orc, blood raging, fighting, and Blood Him being a song of battle. And it made a lot of sense, right? So I like to kind of take that thought process when I approach the last names of these guys. So oh, look, chat coming through clutch. Look at this. Leon. So he said Leon. They said Leon for Leo, obviously. And then Arc, because Arc means bow in French. And then we just throw on a... I like it. I like it. Why don't we do this? Because for some reason I'm addicted to apostrophes in names. Leonarch. Leondric. Leondric? Leondric. Leonric. Leoarch. It's kind of like Leoric from Diablo. I'll take it. I like it. Good idea. Twitch chat coming in clutch. Okay, so then last name. We could do something to do with bow. We could do something with arrow. It is soul. And soul is for the cleric. So let's think... So we're going the lion route, the Leonin route, a manticore, right? What if we used mane? You could do soul mane or spirit mane. Spirit mane. Leoric spirit mane. That seems fucking epic. I'm in. That seems like really epic. We're here. We're here to stay, YouTube. Leoric Spirit Mane. Dope. Our like lion, manticore inspired Tolnar Soulbow. That is so cool. Yeah, I'm into it. I love it. I love it all. Okay, so now we want to work on some backstory. You might not care, but I love backstory, and again, that's what's going to drive me to get to the main dealio, the max level. So if we take Leoric, and he is our AME is French for soul. Spirit Mane. I like it. I do like that AME, I'm assuming... Oh. Ha! Ha ha! I like it. So, we got to come up with backstory, because that's the only way that's going to drive me, right? And for backstory, I'm going to hone in on this. As a Tolnar cub, if you will, because we're going that lion range, he grew up. He's got that feline animalistic instinct to be a hunter. And you just grow up in a survival situation, being a Tolnar in general, a race of survivors, and then being that Leonin influence, that really heavy on the animalistic feline. So being a hunter or a ranger primary, I think is super easy story-wise, right? He grew up as a cub, a cub mix. He grew up in this society of survivors, seeing maybe an older brother, an older sibling, or a parent going out to hunt for food and nourishment for this underground society of survivors. And then just following that as he grew up, going out on hunts, things like that, you have Lear growing up into a full-fledged kind of manticore-esque person, humanoid. So they full grown into an adult, and they're a ranger, right? Ranger first, or hunter, in what kind of the flavor we're in. And again, in this society, I would say that he'd be bow, opposed to a crossbow, because bow to me gives me more of a, I don't want to say devolve, that's a terrible word, just a more simple situation. So like a tribe, right? And an underground had to survive. Maybe their engineering and their mechanics aren't as fully developed as one of the major races or the major developed empires. So that's why I want to go bow. I think it really lends to the fact that Leoric is from the Tolnar underground society, and he's a hunter. Bow seems a little more hunter to me. Don't get me wrong, crossbows are without a doubt also hunters, but it just, for the flavor of this character, a bow seems like really, really flavorful. So Leoric Spirit Main, he grows up, and at this point he's just Leoric, right? Which, in case you're just joining us on YouTube or on Twitch, we picked this because we are using a Tolnar, which in Ashes of Creation you can completely make whatever the hell you want to make. And we decided to make him like a Manticore inspired. So lion, so we're thinking lion mane, so we went with Leo. And thanks to chat, thanks to Bochi, we came up with Arc, which is French for bow. So we put them together, added an apostrophe to be fucking fancy, and that's how we got our name Leoric. And so at this point, before you're level 25, you don't pick your secondary class. So when I'm developing the story, there is a really cool timeline where Leoric is just Leoric, the Manticore-inspired Leonin Tolnar who's a ranger. So then you go through whatever, storyline, what have you, and then he runs into some sort of religious encounter or divine encounter. Like I mentioned, just because you are a cleric in any role-playing game, it doesn't mean that you have to be a warrior for a god or the prophet of a god or a religion. You could have just had a run-in with a divine being who was like, you know what? I like you. Here's a couple magical powers. Get out there, you. Similar to how there are stories of like Greek mythology of like the gods blessing heroes that they enjoyed watching or blessed their way. However, I guess in Greek, a lot of that is just because the gods were sleeping with whoever and they wanted their offspring to have a little silver spoon action. But so then Leoric has this encounter, whether it be a divine being in a forest or a divine being in a cave. We'll assume a forest because he's a ranger, so he's out and about, he's hunting, looking for nourishment, right? So we'll say he has some sort of an encounter, whether it be with an actual cult or organized religion, or it's a divine being. He gets this divine interaction. And through that divine interaction, he unlocks his cleric abilities. I.e., in game, we hit level 25 and we pick cleric as our secondary, right? So now we've got these, if we pick the life path for Leoric, he's got self-healing capabilities, which would make him even more of a survivor, right? More of a like regeneration and healing himself while he's hunting. Or we could pick the death augment, which is more like predator, leaping, attacking. So I think both would fit. I think with us picking Spirit, you know what? Let's throw it to chat, guys. In this creation session, we're at a fork. We're at an impasse. Do we go life augment, which would kind of give our character, I think, from a design perspective, more of a positive like a positive feeling. Maybe he's a little less predator hunty-killy, and he's a little more just survivalist. He's got self-healing. He's a little more helpful with people. However, if we go maybe Death Augment, we kind of go in a direction of he's a loner. He's a predator. He's hunting and killing. The Death Augment might give him curses or debuffs for people. So what would you think, chat? Would you prefer a Life Augment or a Death Augment? Because if not, I'll probably just pick Death! Death! Exclamation point, all capital. All right. Leoric is a Death Augment, so we'll put that here so that we remember while we're kind of concepting out. So he's a Death Augment cleric. So that's going to give us probably like curses or wounds. Staying behind made him sour. He is mad because their race is the only one. All the other privileged races coming back after all this shit has hit the fan. So he has this interaction, and now he's with a divine situation, and now he's a cleric. We're going to go with Death Augment with a bow. So now that makes me think that our character's got more of a predator feel. Let's say like Ringar from League of Legends, right? Like that predator leap out of the bushes. Now he is a ranged character. So this would be more like, let's say, like a death-enhanced arrow coming out of nowhere, right? That's kind of what we're feeling, and that would lend to the Ranger, that would lend to the Death Augment, and more of a predator from the shadows kind of deal, and I think that's really cool, right? So he's coming from the shadows. These are just things to help me keep on track while I'm going. Here's the thing. So now we need to come up with, I like to come up with like a nickname or a title. Similar to how, so like I said, we had an orc bard tank. So he was a siren. And I said that his catchline, or like his title, was the bringer of plate mail and power cords. It's just like a cool thing, or the shadow of death, or, it's kind of dramatic. We did a female version of that, human, it was a Pyrian human, and we said she was a songstress of battle, or the songbird of battle, and she was a siren. So I like to come up with these names that kind of help add even more personality to my character. So Leoric Spirit Mane, right? So we've got this cool lion manticore feel. We've got this predator feel coming from the bushes. So there's a lot to play with there. You could call him like you don't want to go Death Shadow. That feels more roguey. I do like something to do with Predator, like the Divine Ooh, what about that? What about the Divine Predator? That seems neat. That seems super cool. It might be a little too over the top, because I think sometimes it's hard to not want your character to be like the person or the thing, the head of it, while in reality you are like one of many adventurers throughout the world. And Divine Predator makes you feel like you are like the fucking predator, like Apex. But I do like Divine Predator as like a tagline for him. So man, that is it. We can go deeper into backstory, but my YouTube videos have been getting long as fuck, so we will cut it here for you. And then there will be a part 2 where we create a whole nother Soulbow that gets a whole different feel, a different aesthetic, a different personality. Because like, again, I like to show you that even though you pick a class, you and your friend, could it be the same class, have completely different play styles when it comes to personalities and aesthetics. So today we built a male Tolnar, which again is an amalgamation of major races and minor races that you can really make whatever you want. And we chose a Manticore inspired build. So Leonin and bestial features with some reptile additions, possibly a tail or a scorpion tail as a Manticore would be. And he is a Soulbow, which is a primary ranger, secondary cleric, and on that cleric, thanks to Twitch chat, we chose Death Augment. So now we're at Leoric Spirit Mane, the Soulbow with a Death Augment. And we said he is a divine predator, hunting from the shadows, from ranged with a bow and arrow. Guys, thanks again for sticking around. I hope you enjoyed this RP session. Don't forget to like, subscribe, and check out the rest of the channel. And if you're really into our Soulbows, there's another Soulbow coming at you. Thanks again, and have a good day.